Imagine waking up tomorrow with a fever. Your body hurts. You're freezing, even though the air isn't cold. You try to stand and suddenly realize something is wrong. You don't know what's causing it. You don't know how long it will last, and you can't call a doctor. There is no hospital waiting for you, no antibiotics, no emergency room, no machine that can look inside your body and tell you what's happening. Now imagine you're not waking up in your bedroom. You're waking up 50,000 years ago. And the frightening part isn't simply that you're sick, it's that everything you normally do to stay alive still has to happen. You still need water, you still need food, you still need warmth, you still need protection. But your body is starting to fail at the jobs you depend on it to do. And that's when a simple illness can become something much more terrifying. Maybe it starts with a cut. You're hunting, you slip. A sharp piece of stone tears your skin. It's painful, but it doesn't look serious. You clean it, you keep moving. For a few days, nothing seems wrong. Then the pain gets worse. The skin changes. You develop a fever. And now you have a question you can't answer. What's happening inside me? Today, a serious wound can send you toward a doctor, a clinic, or a hospital. There are tests, there are treatments, there are antibiotics for many bacterial infections. There are ways to replace fluids and support the body when things go badly wrong. 50,000 years ago, none of those modern systems existed. That doesn't mean ancient humans knew nothing. They observed injuries, they learned from experience, they used materials from their environment, they cared for wounds, they rested, they passed knowledge between generations. But there was one enormous difference. They couldn't look inside the body and simply ask what's causing this. They had to work with what they could see, and sometimes what they couldn't see was the most dangerous part. The fever gets worse. You're thirsty. Normally you would stand up and get water, but you stand and the world spins. You sit back down. The water hasn't become harder to reach. You have. That's the moment the illness changes. It isn't just something happening inside your body anymore. It's beginning to interfere with the things keeping you alive. You need food, but hunting takes energy. You need warmth, but gathering fuel takes effort. You need to move, but movement hurts. And there's something brutally unfair about this. The environment doesn't care that you're sick. The water is still where it was. The food still has to be found. The fire still has to be maintained. Survival doesn't give you a sick day. And for the first time, you might realize, I can't do this normally anymore. Someone brings you water, someone brings you food, someone keeps the fire going. Things you normally do for yourself, someone else is doing for you. And this is where the story takes an unexpected turn, because humans weren't built to survive entirely alone. Our ancestors lived in social groups. They hunted together, shared resources, protected one another, cared for children, and sometimes they cared for people who couldn't care for themselves. Archaeological evidence of healed severe injuries suggests that some ancient humans survived conditions that would have required significant recovery time. A seriously injured person couldn't simply carry on as normal. If they survived, other people likely mattered. And that tells us something important. The ancient human advantage wasn't necessarily that every individual was incredibly tough. It was that the group could sometimes compensate when an individual couldn't. Your body could fail temporarily. Someone else could carry part of the burden. And that may have given you something incredibly valuable. Time. Time for the wound to heal. Time for the fever to break. Time for your body to recover. But there was still a problem. It's easy to imagine ancient humans as completely ignorant about illness. That's probably wrong. Humans observe, they remember, they experiment. If a certain plant consistently produces an effect, people notice. If cleaning a wound seems to help, people remember. If rest improves recovery, people learn. Knowledge doesn't require a microscope to begin, but there is a difference between knowing what seems to help and knowing why it works. You could understand that a wound should be cleaned without knowing what bacteria are. You could recognize a dangerous fever without understanding the immune system. You could have useful remedies without understanding the chemistry behind them. Ancient humans could have knowledge, they could have experience, they could have care, but they couldn't simply replace everything the modern medical system can do. And when a serious illness overwhelmed the body's defenses, there were fewer ways to intervene. Imagine you're lying beside the fire. People are helping you, but you're still getting worse. and nobody can tell you exactly why. You don't know what disease you have. You don't know how severe it is. You don't know whether tomorrow will be better, and you don't know how long you'll remain weak. That's where the psychological horror becomes deeper than pain. It's uncertainty. Today, even when you're frightened by an illness, you can often seek information. You can ask a doctor, get tested, learn what you're dealing with, understand possible treatments, monitor what happens next. Information doesn't guarantee survival, but it gives you something ancient humans often had much less of: a sense of control. Without that information, your mind can only speculate. What if it gets worse? What if I can't get up tomorrow? What if I never recover? And now you're fighting two things: your body and the uncertainty inside your own mind. Here's where everything comes together. The infection itself is only the beginning. The illness weakens you. That makes ordinary survival tasks harder. Now you need help, and needing help makes you more dependent on the people around you. If they can compensate, you have a chance to recover. But if the illness becomes severe enough, the consequences can spread far beyond the original wound. A medical problem becomes a survival problem. That's the part modern life makes incredibly easy to forget. When you're seriously sick today, you can often remove yourself from normal life. You can lie in bed. Someone can bring food. Someone can bring medicine. You can call for help. You can go to a hospital. The world can temporarily carry some of your responsibilities. Your ancestors had far fewer layers of protection between "I'm sick" and "I can no longer survive normally." This story isn't simply about how terrifying ancient illness was. It's also about why humans survived. Because when one person's body couldn't do something, someone else could sometimes do it for them. One person could hunt. Another could gather. Someone could maintain the fire. Someone could care for the injured. Someone could share food. The individual didn't always have to carry the entire burden. The group could. And that's a powerful clue about human evolution. Maybe our ancestors didn't survive because every person was strong enough to face every problem alone. Maybe they survived because they didn't have to. A broken leg could become a group problem. A sick person could become a group responsibility. And the knowledge of what to do could become knowledge shared across generations. Humans didn't eliminate vulnerability. We learned how to compensate for it. Think about what happens when you get seriously sick today. Your body is still doing the ancient work. Your immune system still fights. Your heart still pumps. Your lungs still breathe. Your body still has to recover. But now there's a massive system surrounding it. Doctors, laboratories, medicines, hospitals, emergency services, medical technology, and millions of people whose combined knowledge exists to keep your body functioning when it can't do everything by itself. Modern medicine didn't make humans invincible, it built backup systems. And that's why a fever that would once have represented a terrifying unknown can now be something you recover from in your own bed. So imagine that first morning again. You wake up with a fever. Your body hurts. You're weak. You don't know what's wrong, but you're surrounded by things your ancestors never had: a phone, clean water, reliable food, medical knowledge, modern medicine, people you can contact, a hospital you can reach. You probably don't think about any of this when you're sick. You just think, "I feel terrible." But 50,000 years ago, serious illness could force a much more frightening question. What happens if my body can't do what survival requires? You can't hunt. You can't travel normally. You can't simply get treatment. You can't know exactly what's happening inside you. And you have to wait and hope your body wins. That's why getting sick 50,000 years ago could be terrifying, not because ancient humans were helpless, not because every illness killed, and not because they had no knowledge. They had knowledge, they had experience, they had one another, but they had far fewer safety nets. And when your body failed, there was much less standing between you and the consequences. Your ancestors didn't survive because they were invincible. They survived because humans learned something incredibly important. When one person becomes vulnerable, the group can become stronger. Sometimes survival isn't about having the strongest body. Sometimes it's about having someone beside you when your body isn't strong enough. And maybe that's one of the most important things your ancestors left you. Not just stronger bodies, not just better tools, but the ability to survive together. Because 50,000 years ago, getting sick could threaten your life. Today, we have built an entire civilization around making sure you don't have to face that threat alone. And if you want to discover what another
another ordinary part of modern life would have felt like when survival depended on ancient instincts. That's where we're going next.